Hello and welcome to Big Scott 35. Let's talk. I've been telling you, about every other week, I like to bring somebody on, and this week I brought on Ed Weskergriff. Ed and I talked a little bit more than a little bit at the National. We hung out some, and we talked about doing something like this, and he graciously said yes. So, Ed, I am a collector. I think you know that first and foremost. So my first question is, when did you start in the hobby?
I first got into my first entry into the hobby was as a kid, which early 90s. I would say my earliest memories of the hobby are 1992, 1993, buying packs of Leaf from the local Clovers, which was like a Philly chain department store,
Okay.
kind of similar to, I would compare it to maybe to like a Target or Walmart. So that was my first entry. Learned about the hobby, buying packs. Obviously, my dad was big in buying packs for us and buying cards for us because my dad collected cards as a kid as well. So it was kind of like a passed down thing. And
Awesome.
you always hear stories about that in the hobby,
Mm-hmm.
where people get into the hobby via their parents, either their mom or their dad. But my dad was a big part of me becoming into cards. And then I took that long period off from cards, as most people my age probably did. About, I would say, from maybe the 7th or 8th grade
Oh, really? That
all,
early?
all the way to the end of high school.
Hmm.
I started to get back into cards and autographs in general pretty big around 2008, 2009 is when I really started to pick up. And then that's how I got into YouTube, because I was doing TTMing, and I used to be really, really big into doing TTMs, which is through the mail autographs.
Right.
You write somebody a request, and you send off a card, and you get it back signed when you put in a self-addressed stamped envelope. So I used to do that all the time because I was a big autograph collector, and I used to like getting autographs of Phillies players and baseball players because I'm a huge baseball fan. So around 2008, 2009, I really started to get back into TTMing and want to send out TTM requests. And the way I did that was I would just go on Google and type in TTM, and there was a pretty big, vibrant community on Blogger, if you remember Blogger.
No, I do not, but I believe
Yeah,
you.
there was a pretty substantial TTM community on Blogger, and they were not the nicest people. They were they were kind of standoffish. So trying to get into that was a little difficult. So I had a YouTube account from 2007 that I created. My username is still the same, Weskergriff. I created that in high school, my junior year of high school, and I said, let me just type in TTM autographs in the search function and see what pops up on YouTube. And lo and behold, a bunch of videos popped up, and this whole community of TTMers was there. And that's how I found the card community on YouTube, which was around since the inception of YouTube. They've been around from like 2006. As soon as YouTube popped up, some of the first videos on here, other than dogs and cat videos, were box break videos to see what was inside these boxes. So the cards have a rich history on YouTube. So I discovered the card community as well on here. And at the time, I was gradually doing TTMs. TTMs were really the meat and potatoes of what I was doing, but cards were trickling back in. And now you wouldn't know if you watch my channel that I did TTMs, because I'm all cards now. And that transition, I would say, throughout the decade plus that I was on YouTube, that transition happened over time. So, and the rest is history. So the video library that's up there on my channel and stuff. So
yeah, so great history. I find it, you said like most people, I find most people like stop, at least, you know, it seems like that they stop around, you know, after high school maybe, or at the end of high school. You stopped actually earlier, like junior high. Was that just because you had other stuff, or was it cool anymore? Or
well, I think a couple things played into it on why I stopped collecting cards towards the late 90s. And I feel a couple factors are in play. One was because the Phillies were horrible in the late 90s. I mean, those were some of the worst Phillies teams. And remember, I'm mostly a baseball guy. Now, I love football, basketball, and hockey, and I do buy cards from those sports, but primarily I am a baseball guy. So I think one of the reasons why I stopped in the late 90s was, one, the Phillies were awful, like I just mentioned.
right.
Two, the steroid era. So I was actually one of those people that were really angry about the players using performance-enhancing drugs, like Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds, all the guys that got caught for that. So I just had a lot of anger that I'm like, I don't want to, like, I wasn't one of those people that was like, I'm not going to the games or anything. Like, my dad was a season ticket holder for the Phillies for like 35 years. So
nice.
we would always go to games at the Vet and everything. So, but I just was like, I'm kind of out of, you know, buying packs of cards, and it just wasn't as fun for me anymore. So, coupled with the Phillies being awful, the steroid era, and just having other priorities. You know, obviously as a kid, you don't have a job, so you only have X amount of money that you can spend stuff on. So other things took up my interest also in buying stuff like music, movies, anime, DVDs, manga, comic books, Star Wars stuff. So yeah, so other things caught my attention. So
Yeah, and I kind of
for a long time.
Yeah, I'm glad I asked that, because we'll get into that stuff there in a little while. Because like for me, I did it quietly. The reason why I asked is because about that time, for me, it was kind of the uncool thing. I'm older than you, of course, so I was, you know, still had some GI Joe and stuff, and that was right at the time when, like, oh, you don't want the girls or some of the guys teasing you about that stuff. So it was kind of like quiet. I actually, all the way through high school, always had little odd end jobs through junior high and stuff, so I can buy ball cards. But yeah, I was just, because when you said that, I was like, wow, that's really early. And then when I got into my 20s, I got my first house, money went to other things. So but I still picked up every once in a while. I've always had one toe in, I guess I always say. So my next question is like you said you collect all the time, because when I was with you, I saw how excited. I didn't know you were a TTMer. You know, first off, let me go back to, I didn't know you were a TTMer till now. That was interesting to know, and it makes sense when I'll follow up here in a minute. And I know you've been around for a while. I wanted to introduce you as an OG, but sometimes that word gets thrown around and everything like that.
Yeah,
because you introduced me to some true OGs on Saturday night, I believe, and that was so fun, just being quiet and listening to y'all guys talk about. Y'all were calling it the Wild West of YouTube then. That was fun for me to listen to those stories, and
that you enjoyed.
Yeah, that was one of the highlights for my weekend, and I think, you know, I had a pretty good weekend there. But as did you. You got back a card that you've been disappointed you let go of. So
oh yes, the nightmare's over.
Yeah, let's while we're talking, let's talk about that. So Did you trade or sell that card before? Is that what my understanding is? And let's tell everybody what the card we're talking about.
No, it was the 2011 Topps update, Mike Trout in a PSA 9. Wanted to get the 9 because that is obviously way more affordable than the PSA 10. I think the PSA 10 is like 3,500 or 3,200 or something, like some ridiculous number like that. So out of the price range. So the PSA 9 is around anywhere between like 13 to 1,600. And the card that I had to trade was the 2018 Topps Chrome update, Shohei Ohtani, the base, the one where he's pitching, not the rookie debut. The rookie debut, believe it or not, is actually more than the pitching because he's hitting on the rookie debut. He's not pictured pitching.
Right.
But the one that I traded, the card that I had that I traded for the Trout was the Ohtani. It was the refractor version, which the refractors from Chrome Update are numbered out of 250. So I sent mine off to get graded. It came back a PSA 10. So the estimated value, judging by the sales data on eBay, it was around 1,600. So 2 sold for 1,600. And 1 sold the day before the National, which kind of screwed me a little bit. But the one that sold the day before the National sold for 1,100.
Yeah.
So you got 2 sales for 16 and 1 sale for 11.
Right.
And obviously the one for 11, people might have red flags like, why did it drop? Personally, I felt like it dropped because everyone's at the National. All the money in the hobby at the moment was at the National. People don't go to the National to go shop online on eBay.
I did both while I was
Yeah.
I'm a degenerate though.
So that's what happened with the 3 sales. And I thought maybe it would take me a couple days to get this trade.
Right.
I was like, I'll probably have to do it maybe at one of those trade nights that was going on. Maybe try to get try to get someone who is more high on Ohtani. Because I'm like, older dealers probably aren't going to want to do the trade. So I went around to only 2 dealers. I only went to 2 dealers, and the first dealer was pretty much close to doing the deal. He was about to say yes until he found out about the 1,100. Now, oddly enough, the first dealer that I went to complete the trade, it wasn't for the Trout. It wasn't for the 2011 update Trout. It was actually for the 2018 Juan Soto PSA 10 short print in the dugout variation.
Yes, I'm very familiar.
So it was a different card. It wasn't for the Trout.
Wow.
So people might be like, well, why would you do that? But I saw that card, and I'm a big Juan Soto fan. I'm like, what? That would be a great card to add to the collection. And I was going around, and I wasn't really having much success finding PSA 9 Trouts. It's like I found a 5. There was a PSA 5 Trout that actually sold as soon as I saw JT Triple Crown 24 was with me. I was like, dude, look, there's a PSA 5 in here for like $600. He's like, oh man, that's a pretty decent deal, I think. And then soon enough, like one person just walked over and bought it as soon as we were talking about it. But I found like 1 PSA 5. Obviously, there was a ton of 10s there. Saw a bunch of 10s. There was a bunch of 8s. I saw more 8s than 9s. The 8s were around like $900, I think, not $800 to $900.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, where the hell's a PSA 9? And I kept looking around, and I finally, the first one that I found was the person I made the deal with. And that was in the red carpet area. And Mark Stofe Sports was with me. And I think he was shocked. I was a little shocked too that no money exchanged hands. Like literally, it was just a straight trade.
Right.
And I think that is pretty rare to happen on the floor of the national, because the dealers are there. The dealers are not there to do straight trades. They're there to make money. They have to make. I mean, they have so much overhead coming to the national, whether it be the table cost, lodging cost, their setup costs, transportation. I mean, everything that goes into setting up at the national. It's pretty expensive. So the fact that a straight trade happened where no money exchanged hands was quite something. And I was very transparent with both dealers on what the sales data were, because that's the number one thing the dealers want to know.
Yeah.
They wanted to know, how much has this thing sold for? Because it was only right now, the card, I actually checked it last night. The card's a Papa 35. It was a Papa 34. So another PSA 10 is in the system. But there's never going to be a high pop on that card because there's only 250 of them, because it is a refractor numbered.
Right.
So I was really, really glad that it happened. I was ecstatic that the trade went through. And I think it's a good trade for both sides. It's good for me because I obviously get the card back that I've been trying to get back for a really long time. And I think for the dealer, it's a great trade because Ohtani was probably the hottest baseball commodity at the show. I mean, all the Ohtani stuff was flying around. So he might have sold, and this was on Thursday that I did the deal. So he had a couple days to move that card. And Ohtani's the favorite to win the American League MVP by all the odds makers out in Vegas. Yeah. So I think he might get a little bump at the end of the season. Well, he's been cool. He's cooled off offensively a little bit, but I think he's still, as long as Vlad doesn't win the Triple Crown, he should be okay. But I think the dealer will make out fine in that deal because he had the Trout listed for $1,600. He told me realistically he would take 13 for it, so he was going to knock off $300.
Wow.
But I think he'll be able to sell that for $1,500, or I'm pretty sure he'll be able to make a couple $100 on the card.
Yeah, Ohtani was probably the hottest modern card there, I would think, this year.
Baseball, especially, yeah.
Yeah, that's what baseball I should say. I should put that, because usually in the past it's always some call up like right before the national. I remember distinctly the one year when Carrera got called up right before the national, and that place was crazy for Carlos Carrera. I forget what year that was, but it was crazy in there. In Soto year and Acuna, it was like, it's always like these players. And this year we really didn't have that. So
I think Correa was 2016, if I'm remembering.
Was that it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was just it was kind of nuts in there for that, and it just seems like every year. And this year, it just seems like the rookies is they got a lot of them, but none of them are like the superstars yet.
I mean, Mike O was able to trade a stack of Ohtani's for the Roberto Clemente rookie card. So
I witnessed that. So
yeah, so that should just tell you how much Ohtani mania was taken, especially for baseball, for the national. So
yeah, and that guy was excited to get that stack too. I mean, for the price, he got cash and Roberto Clemente. So that was pretty amazing.
Definitely.
We walked away. He goes, "I wish you were videotaping." I was like, I didn't know what to do.
That happens sometimes.
Yeah.
You'll just be like, damn, I should have filmed that. Like, I could have got that on tape, but you're in the moment too much, and just sometimes you can't believe what's happening. Like, I'm sure Mark would have filmed the Trout thing, but like, you offer something, but at the same extent, I guess you're used to rejection sometimes with making these trades, and they happen, and you're just like, wow, it's actually going down. This is happening.
Well,
this is awesome.
Did Mike tell you he actually had the money counted out sitting there? And then the guy goes, "Can I see those cards?" And I was like, "Oh shit, let's go."
That was like when we went to Giordano's and we're just waiting for our table. We're minding our own business, and two guys come over, and they're like, "Well, you selling anything?" Like, what? Like, dude, we're trying to buy a deep dish pizza here. Like, we're trying to have a lunch.
I thought I was going to see you make a deal. I was like, this is the description of this show. How crazy this show is we're going to a restaurant and here's Ed making a deal. Making plays.
Well, they saw Dave had the backpack. I think Mike was outside at the time, but they saw Dave had his backpack, you had the back. They asked both of you guys, and you were like, no. And then I'm like, and then they asked me, and I was like, well, I have some stuff. I didn't plan on selling it. I mean, if you want to offer on it, sure.
Right.
I thought for sure he was going to buy the Otani.
I did too.
The gold Otani. The reason he didn't buy that card though was because of the condition.
Okay.
That Otani, like that's the reason that I was selling it. I looked at it, I'm like, this is not going to gem, and it's probably a PSA 8, so I just rather just sell it raw.
Right.
And I think they were selling for like close to like 125 or 130.
Right.
And I was like, I told the guy, I was just like, you want it $100. And they actually had a conversation about it. They were talking about it for what, like a couple minutes?
Yeah.
And
it was him and his son. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, no, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to pass. I'm like, hey, you came to me, pal. I'm just trying to eat my deep dish. Like,
yeah. That was that was the definition of the week. That was, I mean, I saw you on another channel, and I was glad I did, because now I subbed to that channel with Amish Dave. I didn't know the other fella, so got to watch you on that one. And so that was just a crazy weekend, and it was fun. I enjoyed it, and I know it was great. So moving on, and you also gave me, we're going to transition from sports. I wanted to really talk to you about, because me and you have a lot of similarities, not exact, but we don't just do sports cards. You do Game of Thrones and pops and figures. I like the same thing, because it kind of keeps you not burned out on one thing, and just kind of different items to always be hunting for. And you gave me great advice at the show about autograph. I asked you about the 101, and you're like, if you just want the autograph of the person, don't buy a premium. That was awesome advice, because I really didn't think of it that way, and thank you for that. So that saved me some money, or just thinking about it. And because I've asked you, I kind of in your videos before we got to know each other, was like, yeah, I like to ask you some stuff. So the Game of Thrones, did you start like just going after that because of the show, or the show and you bought some of it, you really liked the cards? What was it, or a combination? Or
it was a little bit of a combination of both. Obviously, I was a huge fan, and am still a fan of the show and the books that George R. R. Martin has created, the Song of Ice and Fire.
Right.
And I started buying those cards around season 4. So the middle of season 4 is when I became aware of those cards, because I love my favorite. Well, one of my favorite characters in the show is the Hound. And I was just like, it'd be really cool to get an autograph of the actor that plays the Hound, who's Rory McCann. So I'm like, I wonder if he has like any PSA cut autos or anything like that. So I typed it into eBay, and lo and behold, I was like, they made cards of Game of Thrones. I was like, this is awesome. Let me check this out. Found out about, well, I knew of Rittenhouse already. I knew that they did non-sports cards, but I was like, oh, Rittenhouse Archives, who is a small company actually in my neck of the woods. They're Philadelphia, Jenkintown area. And they basically pretty much a labor of love for those guys. They do.
Did you say Jenkintown?
Yeah, Jenkintown, Pennsylvania.
Do you watch? Never mind. There's a TV show, I think, it's out of that town. Go ahead.
Are you talking about the HBO show with What's
No,
his name?
on ABC. What is the
Oh, the
name?
Goldbergs.
Goldbergs.
Yeah. That's the same. It's the same place.
Okay, when you said
Yeah.
that, it just kind of triggered that in my mind. Yeah, go ahead. I love that show. It makes me laugh. Yeah,
But they have, that's pretty much like a labor of love. They do a whole bunch of non-sports like Star Trek, James Bond, the Amityville Horror, the Umbrella Academy, like a whole bunch of non-sports titles that they have.
mm-hmm.
And they have Game of Thrones, and they had Game of Thrones since season 1. So I go over, look at the checklists. I'm like, this would be really cool to get autographs of all the characters from each season. Because the way that Rittenhouse Archives releases Game of Thrones, they release in season 1, season 2, season 3, 4, etc., etc.
Okay.
And now they've done like specialty sets like Valyrian Steel, Iron Anniversary, like these other sets. Now there's no more seasons of Game of Thrones. So I looked at the cards. I'm like, they're not that expensive. Most of the cards were around 30, on the higher end, a little above 50. Of course, there was a few cards that were really high end. At the time, Amelia Clark, who was the most expensive autograph card. She plays Daenerys Targaryen.
Sure.
She was also in Star Wars. She was in Solo. At the time when I started collecting, that card was $300. So that was like the top card. That was the most expensive card. So everything below that, like Kit Harington, who plays Jon Snow, he was like 80, $70. He was pretty cheap. Richard Madden, who, he's gotten more acclaim after Game of Thrones, winning some Golden Globe awards, and he's going to be in the new Marvel series Eternals. He was relatively cheap as well. He plays Robb Stark in Game of Thrones, so he had 2 cards. So I was like, this would be a great thing to do. And I've always wanted to set collect because as long as I've been on YouTube, there's always been people that have done sets, insert sets from the 90s, autograph sets from tier 1, tribute sets, you name it. There's so many sets you can put together with sports cards. And that's something that I've never done before. I've been more wider in my approach because I would just do, okay, I'm picking up Phillies cards, I'm picking up Eagles cards, Sixers cards, Flyers cards. I'm really broad on how I collect my stuff. So I'm like, this will give me a very narrow and set goal to accomplish. Get all the autograph cards in this set. It's something I've never done before, and I want to try it. And I did put together several sets for Game of Thrones. I put together season 3, season 4, season 5, and season 6. And I'm only a couple cards away from doing season 7, but I've been looking for 3, 4, or 5 cards for about like 3.5 years now. And I can't seem to find them. They just don't pop up, or when they do pop up, they're grossly overpriced, more than I'm willing to pay. Right. And I'm just stubborn like that. And I'll just be like, I'm not paying, $80 for a character who's only in 3 episodes. I'm just not going to do it. Like, I'm just going to have to wait. I'll just wait. I've already waited 3 years. Might as well keep waiting. So with doing those sets, it gave me such a great appreciation for people who do set collecting, because it's not easy. It's very hard. It's very time consuming, and you have to be insanely patient, because there might be a couple cards that you need to complete a set that just do not come up. They either get put into collections or they just don't pop up on the secondary market. And that's one of the things that I learned with non-sports cards. Non-sports cards, if you want to get them within a year of release. If a product comes out within a year of release, that is your time to strike, because after a year of release, those cards dry up. Right. They either go into collections, collectors have them, and they don't want to part with them. Non-sports people, most non-sports collectors, they will hold on to their stuff. Sports collectors, I feel, will let stuff go a little more. They'll move stuff out to get newer things. non-sports collectors I have found throughout the years, they hold stuff. They do not get rid of it. They're hoarders. But with
if they like a character or a show,
yeah,
they're going to be all about it. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and but a lot of these cards just will dry up on the secondary market. Now, you might be able to, like, for instance, there's this one card in season 7 I need. It's Jim Broadbent. He plays one of the Maesters from the Citadel. He's a pretty accomplished actor. He's been in a ton of movies. He was also in like the Harry Potter franchise. So, I mean, he's a very, very solid, good actor.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm comfortable paying $100 to $120 for the card because it is a limited autograph card, which by Rittenhouse's definition means that there's less than 80 of them. That's like they're loose with their definitions sometimes. But there's one up on eBay, and there's only been one up on eBay for like a year. The card just doesn't come to auction, and the guy wants $200 or best offer. I've offered him $150, auto decline. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not paying $200 for this card. It's not, in my opinion, a $200 card. So I'm just going to have to wait. Now, patience pays off sometimes, but other times it will burn you. And I do not envy anyone. I do not envy anyone that is trying to collect Game of Thrones cards now, as opposed to when I was doing it back, I guess in 2015 was when season 4 came out. Because the prices now are night and day different.
Right.
Those, like, just like the card explosion has happened with sports cards, that has happened with non-sports as well. And I'm sure you can attest to it with Star Wars cards.
Yes.
They have absolute every pretty much big pop culture, anything with big pop culture relevance card wise has gone up substantially. So for instance, I was talking about Kit Harington and Jon Snow. Now I have about 5 or 6 of his autos from various sets. The most I've ever paid for any single one of his autograph cards is like $100. The card I paid $100 for is now like $800. Is now ridiculous. Amelia Clark, who when I told you when I started was $300, which by the way I still don't have any of her autos. She's like the holy grail of Game of Thrones cards. When I started, it was $300. Now, her cheapest autograph is probably $2,400.
Jeez.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah, that is. You're talking about that's Jason Dominguez numbers. What are you talking about?
No, I actually went to the National with a hope to try to find one of her autograph cards.
Yeah, and I didn't even see any Game of Thrones. I barely saw Star Wars.
There was a couple there was one dealer that was selling Game of Thrones, which was in years past. In 2019, there was, I think, about like 4 or 5 dealers that had a decent display of Game of Thrones cards. And 2017, same, 2018, same story, 17 and 16, same story. There was a pretty substantial amount of Game of Thrones cards. This year, there was only one, which I was a little surprised with, since there was a product that was just released, the Iron Anniversary. But as you mentioned, there wasn't too much non-sports. There was a little bit, but really not a lot. I thought there would be more Star Wars. I was kind of hoping to run across maybe like a Mark Hamill autograph. I really want to try to, I've been saying this for years, I really want to try to get a Mark Hamill autograph in the collection. Mm-hmm. And I really should have did it years ago because his stuff is just insane as well. I mean, I don't think you could find a Mark Hamill autograph certified in either a card product or a PSA slab for maybe under $500.
Right.
So he's a pretty penny. But I was kind of surprised because I know in 2019 there was one dealer that had insanely high value, high end non-sports cards. Like he had a Harrison Ford high tech auto, and Harrison Ford is always going to be insanely expensive because one, he just doesn't sign a lot, and two, if he is in any top Star Wars products, it's going to be very limited. So I think whenever he's in any product, he only signs about like 5 or 10 cards. And they had like one of the high-tech autos of him in his New Hope outfit. So obviously that the iconic image of him in that outfit, I mean, we associate Han Solo with his New Hope outfit. And I think it was numbered out of 5, and the guy wanted 3,500, which when you look at comps, it was actually pretty fairly priced.
Right.
But you're just like, that's crazy. I mean, but it is Harrison Ford. It is.
Yeah, that's, I have quite a few autographs, but they're kind of like the secondary actor. My biggest one, I think, is the actress that played Mon Mothma. General. So that's probably, but my most exciting one was my last one. I don't know if you saw that video yet, but it is labeled Security Officer. That's his name.
Oh yes, I did see that. That was from Mandalorian, right?
Yeah. I was like, that's kind of, me and my friends at work were joking, like, when we were just, it was funny. I've never seen one without a name. Because usually they like to name all their characters, even if they're not named on screen. So if they're used in a book or comic book or whatever, they could be used again. But that was, Stormtrooper number 7. It was kind of like, it was like the guy has a card and his name is Security Officer. One of the best things was one of the guys underneath of it said he was going to super collect Security Officer.
Ops will do that. They throw. I mean, Rittenhouse does it to a certain extent, maybe with Game of Thrones as well. But they'll just flood. They'll flood in like obscure or background characters.
Right.
So you're just like, okay, I bought a box of like Star Wars Masterworks, and hoping to hit a character that maybe has a couple speaking lines, but then you get like Security Officer, and you're just like, oh boy. That's why, and I also feel that's part of the reason why the more premier characters are as expensive as they are now, because people realize like there's not too many cards. Like a good example of that is Ahsoka Tano, Ashley Eckstein. Like I remember her autograph was like $15 to $20 all day long, every day. And I did pick one up. I picked up because I do like the Clone Wars TV show and Star Wars Rebels.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to get the whole Rebels crew in the high-tech sets.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember those cards were like really cheap for a really long time. And then obviously with everything that is going on, those cards have spiked. I think like the cheapest autograph now that you can get of Ashley Eckstein, who plays Ahsoka Tano, who's the voice of her, is
please, you gotta say that she plays her. She plays her in a cartoon.
Yeah, she's the synonymous voice though, of the character.
There's a lot of people that were mad that she didn't play the live action character.
Yeah, Rosario Dawson was in what played her. I thought she did a good job though.
She did. Cool. She did very good, and I'm gonna say I love Rebels. That was probably, outside of the original 3, that's probably one of my favorite Star Wars movies, TV shows, whatever. But and explain, if you watch Mandalorian, I told the guys at work that love Mandalorian, I go, you got to watch. They're cartoons, but you have to watch these other 2 cartoons to understand stuff in the Mandalorian. So
hey, you could just pop it on like with Disney Plus, since people have it for the Mandalorian. Just like throw on an episode for it. They're only like 25-30 minutes. I mean, you just bang them out like that.
Well, those cartoons, they're really short. They're 20 minutes at most. So
I like them because a lot of them are very well written too.
Yes.
I want an autograph of Dave Filoni. We need a certified autograph of Trapper Wolf, because he pops up in the Mandalorian. Don't make Security Officer, but give us a Dave Filoni autograph, man. I want one so bad of him. I paid good money for that one.
Right. It was, that just threw me off. And I bought the season 1 box, and the card I got was a mem card, and on it it was the Mandalorian, and I was like, oh, what is this a piece of? It is a piece of cloth that was the same out of the same bolt that they made the cape. So it's not a piece of the cape, it's in the same bolt of cloth. It's cape adjacent.
So it wasn't you. So wait, run that by me again because it's so ridiculous. I
wish I had it next to me. So it says it's material card.
Okay.
So and I flip it over to see what it is because it's cloth, and I was like, what did they make of the actual the Mandalorian? So
yeah.
So season 1, you don't know his name yet. So I flip it over and it says, congratulations. You have a piece of material of the bolt. I forget what they said, but you know how like the cloth comes in these bolts,
like the whole thing that you pull down. Okay.
Right. Yeah. So of the same bolt that made the cape. So it's like you don't have an actual
you don't have the cape. But you have the pieces that we didn't need for the cape.
Right, that hit this cape adjacent. So it's
like, that's so ridiculous. But it's kind of funny. So
yes.
maybe I want one right now.
Out of 2 boxes, I got some of the most memorable stuff that just makes me want to laugh.
Tops, man.
Tops go Tops.
Tops does that. I kind of get nervous a little bit when Topps gets any non-sports title because they apply, and I've said this before a while ago, they apply their sports card model to the non-sports title.
Right.
And it just doesn't, in my opinion, as someone who collects both, it does not transition well.
Right.
Because non-sports collectors, I shouldn't generalize them all under an umbrella, but I feel like the majority of them, they just want an autograph of the character. They want the card to look presentable and an autograph of the character. They don't care that the card is numbered out of 10 right. or numbered out of 15 or numbered out of 25. We care about that as sports card collectors. You know what I mean?
Really don't. If I want an autograph of the player, the artificial numbering, the limit, I don't get that. But go ahead with your story. Because I'm an old school collector. That's part of my problem.
Yeah. But it's I guess the terminology would be manufactured scarcity.
Right.
They apply it to non-sport, like that Anthony Daniels that you wanted to get. I'm like, he has a good amount of autographs out there. He has some very nice cards out there. I wouldn't pay a premium for any low numbered autographs of him because I don't feel like there's a demand for that. If you want the autograph, and he's a character from the original trilogy.
All of them.
He's in all of them.
He's in everything.
Great character, C-3PO. So if you want an autograph card of him, I think you can get one, a very nice one, for way less instead of paying a premium for a little gold number on the card.
Right. Yeah. And when you said that, it was like, he's exactly right. Because I feel the same way. Of course, some of the guys that I collect, and I want the rainbows or whatever, but the number stuff to me with autos. But
see, I get that. I get it from a sports card perspective though, because if you have like a Bowman Chrome of Trout and like one's red, like numbered out of 25, and one's gold numbered out of 50, like I get that allure. I understand that. I don't get it for the non-sports.
Yeah.
So maybe it sounds hypocritical that I get it for the one, but I don't get it for the other. But
yeah. I get it. I get lured into it in the sports too, because I think it's so much pounded into us. But something I have gotten in the past from when Topps first started it, they actually made cards and the hits in this one product. I can't remember what it was. One of the hits was actual pieces of film in the card.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
I got 2 of them, and
Upper Deck would do that too.
It might be, but I think it was Topps. But because I had, it's one of them is Darth Vader and Luke fighting in Empire Strikes Back. And I forget what the other one is. And I really like those. That because I like that unique. It felt like a little bit more as a collector of that movie franchise, and now just a franchise. It just seemed different, and I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, unique item, unique card.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Do you for like Game of Thrones? Do you collect any of the higher end like figures? I'm not gonna say toys, figures.
Um, they have released a couple figures. They used to make the statues. The
Hmm.
Dark Horse, I think, would do them. The Dark Horse ones. A lot of those ones are very expensive because they just disbanded them and they don't make them anymore. I have a few of them. I had like Jon Snow that I was displaying, the Hound that I was displaying, and I think the only other one I got that's boxed that I never opened was Stannis, the One True King, Stannis Baratheon, and that one's like insanely expensive apparently because they didn't make that many of them, and I think that one's like 300 in the box sealed. So
Right? Did McFarlane make any of those
um
or Sideshow?
I think they did. There was a figure line that put them out. I forget what company it was. I want to say it was McFarlane. They were pretty cool. They
Mhm.
made like 2 series of them. I bought them all, obviously, and then they made like a couple. They made a couple Comic-Con variations of one of like Tyrion Lannister with like different helmets and stuff like that. I didn't pick those ones up, but I think McFarlane put them out, and then McFarlane, I think, came back to it.
Hmm.
They came back to Game of Thrones during the final season, and they released like 4 figures, and they released like one of the dragons. I think I picked up a few of them. I picked up like Arya, Jon Snow, and I think I picked up Daenerys.
Because yeah, I know Pops did a line with like different people sitting on the throne and some of the dragons.
The
I
most
thought that was a pretty cool line.
the most expensive Funko Pop, to my knowledge, of all time is still the Comic-Con Headless Ned. I think that was
Really?
like, yeah, I think at one point that was like $5,000 or something like that.
Wow, I've never seen that. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I haven't picked up. I love the movies. I love or the show. I love the books. I just never got into. I can't collect everything, so
Oh yeah,
I'm strictly Star Wars, and within Star Wars, I stick with Stormtroopers, and right now I'm in Mandalorian. And like you, I love Rebels, so I pick up most stuff, Rebels and Stormtroopers, and then the new movie or new show, whatever the Batch, whatever that is. I haven't
Bad Batch that
Bad
just
Batch.
finished actually.
Yeah, I need to binge watch that, but I've been binging other stuff right now.
Oh, it's good. It's real solid. You'll like it.
Yeah, I'm gonna like it. I even like the non original series of Star Wars where everybody else hates them. So I I understand that where they make the movies for kids, so I try to watch it through my 10-year-old eyes. So um, yeah. So with that being said, for me, I do Grateful Dead and the Grateful Dead, The Walking Dead, and because I was going to go to my next question, I had Grateful Dead on my mind, and I do video games. That's and Star Wars kind of ties into the video games for me. I used to have a very extensive music collection, but when I moved from Virginia to Iowa, I was moving into a very small apartment, so I had to get rid of my movies and my music.
Oh man,
Yeah, I had to get rid of some stuff, and
there wasn't any space in the U-Haul.
actually, the company paid for all of that. I just didn't have space in the new apartment. It was
Okay.
tiny. Like you saw how big I am. I had to kind of turn a little sideways to walk down the hall through the front door. So,
Damn.
yeah, it was not. I was like, "What is smaller people live here?" It was weird. But if I'd have bought this house, I had plenty of room for all of it, and I missed my music terribly. So you have a very extensive vinyl collection, correct?
Yes.
And so is that something music? Is that something that's always been there for you, or
Oh yeah.
the type of music you listen to? That's the you know, I hate everybody music.
Yeah. I've been buying records or probably since I've been, probably since, God, it's I would say since maybe like 2003, 2004. I
Mhm.
would always buy the records when I would go to shows. And when you go to the show, you go to the merch table and they're selling the record.
Right.
So I would always just buy the record because the records would always come with digital downloads of the record. So you buy
Right.
the record and you get the digital download that you can put on your iPod.
Right.
Wonder if they still make iPods. But that's how I would do it. And I did that for a really long time. Then I started going to record shops and buying a couple records here and there. I wouldn't say I have a big record collection. I have a pretty decent sized collection, but it's nowhere near like my card collecting or
Oh,
autograph collecting.
yeah.
Or
You got it. I mean, it's like a side hobby,
yeah,
Yeah. And I didn't make that fun of you. I like that music as well. I grew up with everybody either played baseball or rode bikes or skateboards. So that was kind of, the music that was. It's funny that you listen to some of that music because I know you're younger than me, and some of that music is,
oh yeah, I would definitely say I have pretty, I guess, strange or maybe weird.
I don't think it's weird. It's just
Well, I listen to a lot. Like
like punk.
I listen to a lot of like it drives me nuts. But people are like, I listen to everything. Like, well, I listen to a lot of punk, obviously,
Mhm.
hardcore punk, indie rock, indie pop, uh, independent country. Apparently, I was listening to some of that recently.
Wow.
Uh,
You listen
so
to country and western?
I'm all over the place here. I'll listen to some, I'll listen to the roots, hip hop. Not too much hip hop, not but definitely like the roots or atmosphere or uh, maybe like Kid Cudi or like stuff like that.
Right.
Uh, and then obviously, classic rock, I guess. The staple bands.
Yeah, I am a classic rock, and I always liked what wasn't pop. I hated like pop music, and I didn't like the hair bands.
Hair metal
Yes, can't
band.
stand it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't. I
The
can't do
80s
it.
were like the 80s were probably I would say the best era for music because so many new musical genres like pretty much flourished. But
Right.
mainstream like hair metal and the more mainstream 80s music. I mean, when people think of 80s music, they just think of I guess Motley Crue or
Cindy Lautner,
yeah, or
Duran
like
Duran.
yeah, or like or like synthesizer or music
Right.
like that. But I'm like, dude, there was a ton of great music in the 80s.
Oh yeah, I just can't do Motley Crue, and it just when I hear those, either I feel like I'm in a strip club or I'm both uh, at a party and I got to go because I listened to a lot of rap music at that time and
That's a pretty
grunge.
fair assumption. You feel like you're at a strip club or at a party that you want
Yeah.
to get out of.
Yeah, it wasn't something I listened to riding around. Uh, yeah, so that's just another part of the hobby for you, and to me, it just makes a well-roundness of it. And now going back to the sports cards and the TTM, and like I said, that was something I did not really know that you did, but it doesn't surprise me because I know when we were at the show, because you don't show off a lot of autographs on your channel, not tremendously a lot, but man, when you got those 1950s or 60s, I should say, autographs, and then one of the football player that passed away, what was his name? You were excited. I mean,
Yeah, Gordon Brown. Yeah.
you could feel the excitement from you that you were so happy to show me and Mike that what you picked up. And I was like, man, this guy really enjoys these autographs. I was like, it made me feel good, So
That's one of the things I like doing. Like, this will sound very strange, but you can find hundreds of autographs of like Mike Schmidt,
Hmm.
or who's another? Steve Carlton, or even Derek Jeter,
Hmm.
or Barry Bonds, or I don't know, insert popular player here.
Right.
But there's only so many few autographs out there that you can find of like truly obscure guys who maybe either had a cup of coffee with your team, or something happened to them, or maybe they passed away, and not a lot of people got their autograph, stuff like that. So
Hmm.
I really really love those type of very obscure autographs. I'm sure PSA DNA doesn't like when I send those cards in to get authenticated,
Right.
because they probably don't have any examples on hand to grade them. So like if you like whenever me or Mike do a PSA DNA sub, like we'll send just really obscure, borderline, like really bad, obscure Phillies where it's just like I'm sure the authenticator is like, why is this person sending in this card? Why does this card need to be encapsulated? But I just love stuff like that because it's stuff that you can't find. All
Right.
Pop Ones probably, but it's just cool. I don't know. I find amusement in it, and it's just the way I kind of like to collect. I'm, I just do. I just like it because it's really fun, and I get a kick out of it.
Right. It's fun when you. It's like when you the stuff that's weird. No, I want to say weird. No, the stuff that's unknown, the stuff that you find when you show that
Obscure,
obscure. Very. That's the word I'm
very
looking for.
obscure,
Thank you. Uh,
oddball too.
yeah. Yeah. Sorry, the '90s come back to me and my brain fries. So my brain is the one that was in the pan with the eggs. So, uh, so anyway, when you like what's of the Philly that you got, and then it looks like you got Mike trying to get him too. It's an older Philly that Puddinhead Jones.
Oh, Willie Puddinhead Jones.
Yes, like the
I don't
first
have an autograph of him. I need to get one.
right. So the first time you got him, I remember the video. You were giggling to yourself as you're pulling that out, just loving because you got to say Puddinhead. You could just
I
tell.
read more about his career, and he was actually the best third baseman in Phillies history prior to Mike Schmidt.
Really?
Like before Schmidt, he was like the all-time leader in pretty much every category for the Phillies at third base. So he was a really solid player. I don't know if he's on the Phillies Wall of Fame or not, but obviously not a Hall of Fame player.
Right.
Outside of the Phillies, most people will probably not know him. But he had a really nice career for the Phillies. Had a pretty standout career for them. And the cool thing about him is that he's in pretty much every big, uh, you know, iconic set from the 50s. He's in like every set. He's in 51 Bowman, he's in 52 Tops, he's in 53 Tops. He's in like every year of the 50s, and I think he stops at either 61 or 62 Tops. I forget. He wasn't on the Phillies then. He ended his career with another team, but he's in 48 Bowman. I'm pretty sure he's in 48 Bowman. It was either 48 or 49 Bowman, but he's in some major hidden sets. So it's a cool way to pick up some vintage cards of a player that's really cool, has a badass nickname, and was a Philly. So I'm like, this is a really fun way because Mike Go and Ray from Philly, they'll get on me sometimes being like, you need to buy more vintage cards. And I'm like, dude, I would love to buy more vintage cards, but they have to be in the range of my budget. And the thing with vintage is I prefer to see it in person, honestly. I know I've been buying all the Willie Puddinhead Jones cards off eBay, and thankfully the ones I've bought and have been the pictures have been accurate to what I receive. But sometimes when you look at vintage, I mean, you'll know this, when you look at it in person, even when it's slabbed, you might not notice things that a picture, like that the picture doesn't show.
Right.
So it's cool to see it in person. I I prefer buying vintage in person than over the internet.
Yeah, you know how I feel. That's what I did at the National. I was like, if I'm gonna buy these, I'm gonna buy this stuff in person. So, that's I start throwing that money around. I want to make sure I know what I'm getting. So, yeah. Is there a card where they have his nickname on it?
I think one of the cards mentions it in his
Bio
on the back of the bio.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was Alex Bowman 53 who was the first one for me to find out about Mr. Puddinhead Jones, because Alex used to do standalone videos of each card from the 1953 Bowman color set, and he would talk a little bit about the player, and he showed because Willie Jones is in the 1953 Bowman color set, and he showed the card, and he talked about how his nickname was Puddinhead, and he talked about his career as a Philly, and he was a pretty decent power hitter for his time.
Right.
So I was just like, wow, this would be really cool to pick up some of these card slabs. So, and I know nobody's cornering the Willie Puddinhead Jones market out there, so I'm like, I'll have free reign. Don't have to worry about the speculators. Don't have to worry about any of that. So I can enjoy the hobby. So that's how I've been doing that avenue.
Yeah,
I pretty much have the whole run. I pretty much have his entire run.
Oh, okay.
There's very few cards I'm missing actually from his run, because I have the 52 tops. I have the 58 Hires root beer food and beverage. He was in there too. He's in there with Willie Mays and I think Mickey Mantle's in there too.
Do you just have the card, or do you have the whole?
No, I just have the card. There's one on eBay of the whole tab.
Oh, really?
The guy has the whole tab. He wants $100 though. I've been watching that sucker for like a year and a half, waiting for him to lower it or send a special offer, because I don't mind paying a couple bucks. I mean, I don't mind paying up for a card like that, because obviously to find the whole tab, and two, to get it graded. I mean, if you had that card right now in my possession, I want to get it graded, that would cost like $35-$40. So I factor that into the offer I would send out. So I'd be comfortable like paying like maybe like $60-$70 for that card. Right. Not $100 though.
Right.
So I have to wait a little bit.
Right. I did the same thing with Gary Carter squirt that they put on the bottles, squirt bottles back in the 80s to sell. And I kind of had to figure how much it would be to get the whole tab and everything. Because, I'm on a set registry for some reason. That's got me all addicted to it. So
they say that set registry, many have told me it's addictive like crack.
It is. And
once you stop, you can't stop.
And they're forcing us to stop. And I guess that's going to lead me into my final little segment. I know, you've done the grading, and I know you've done some SGC, I guess, and some CGS or a CS, whatever, CSG. Okay. Yeah, I'll have a 50 card reveal actually. Or I just did a 50 card reveal this past week on my channel. Since this is going to be on Sunday, that one came out on Thursday. So they are tough. My gosh, they are tough. But are you going to continue? Because you are the king of, you know what I'm going to say?
I'm not sure.
You are the king of going through the dollar boxes.
Oh, yeah.
And finding, making water out of wine, as Elico 3 calls it. Is that where you found that Ohtani? Was in a discount box, I should say? Yes. Yeah. So there you go. I mean, you always talk about it, and you didn't really get a chance at the National to do much of that. But
no.
Are you willing to do that with SGC and CSG as you did with PSA?
That was rough at the National. I really, really want to go through those value boxes, because from everything I've heard from people, the value boxes were incredibly good. Like, there was a lot of really nice cards, nice inserts, rookies, parallels,
numbers. So, I heard.
It sucks that, I mean, it just wasn't possible. Not with a general admission pass, in my opinion. I mean, I could have went maybe around like 4 or 5 o'clock if I found a couple boxes, which I did with a couple people, but for the most part, I didn't get to accomplish that. So it's a learning experience for next year for Atlantic City. Well, obviously, since I'm going to be in the area, I'm going to get the VIP pass. You don't want to do general admission if it's going to be a very busy show.
Mm-hmm.
So, but in regards to Graydon, boy, Graydon has changed so much. I know that's stating the obvious, but I mean, I've been doing PSA submissions when they were $5-6. They used to do $5-6 specials. So, going through a value box, picking up a couple cards and sending them off for $5 to $6 to get graded. I mean, even if you would get a 9 or an 8, your window for you had a huge window to not mess up. So even if you screwed up one card or you missed something on one card, it wasn't a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with the increase in price and just the overall state of third-party grading, you got to be insanely selective on what you're sending in. And for me, I know I've been going through like that Otani card, that Otani gold card that I was trying to move.
Mm-hmm.
If that was 4 or 5 years ago, I would have gotten it graded. I would not have cared about the condition. But now I'm like, do I really want to spend close to $35? They hold on to it for a year and a half when I know it's probably going to get a PSA 8. I just don't want to do that. So going forward, I'm still going to be doing, I got to see when they open back up, but I would still like to do PSA because there are a couple cards that I have in my collection that I want to get slabbed by PSA. The Trout gold that I bought, that I want to send that off to PSA. Still going to be using SGC. I think SGC is probably the best right now from a collector standpoint because they are the cheapest right now and you're going to get the best turnaround. So if you're a collector and you just want cards slabbed for your collection and you want grades, I highly recommend doing SGC. That's the way to go. CSG, we'll see what happens with them. I know that they have a lot of people out there that are really high on CSG because, obviously they come from the comic book world, so they already have a built-in fan base of people who already like them. They don't have to do what HGA has to do. They don't have to build a fan base. Like HGA is trying to, like a grading company like that, they're trying to build up goodwill in the in the hobby, and they're trying to build up their brand. Whereas CSG doesn't have to do that. I mean, they already have an established from the comic book world, so they have already a huge legion of supporters. But I sent a couple orders off to them with Mike O. Still haven't gotten it back. I know Mike told me our March orders got logged a couple weeks ago. So I think they bit off more than they could chew, but that's kind of happened to every third-party grader. So they got swamped. I saw their holders at the National where I thought they looked great. I thought they looked better in person than they do on camera or picture-wise. I think the slab looks great. I know a lot of people have a lot of criticisms about the holder, the
flip.
The flip, yeah, that's what the flip. They don't like the look of the flip. Personally, I don't see anything wrong with the flip. I think it looks pretty cool. Obviously, there's a lot of space in there if you don't get the subgrades, but I sent the cards I sent some with subgrades and some without. But as long as they grade consistently and fairly and move orders in a somewhat timely manner, I think they'll be quite fine. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to seeing how I do on their services. So, like I think I sent them about like 20 cards that I gave to Mike on a couple of different orders. So we'll see how it goes there. I'll probably keep a couple for the collection. Maybe I'll move a couple to get something else for the collection. But we'll say third party grading is just so much like I may sound like a broken record, but so much has drastically changed in kind of a short time span if you think about it. I mean, if we're going by 2018 to now, that's not that big of a window.
Right.
And the changes that we have seen in that time have just been chaotic. I mean, if you think about it, PSA went from $5 specials to now, a backlog of, some say it
What was
was
that, a 3-4 year span?
yeah, 16, 17 million.
Right.
But it's just wild. And great, like there's a lot of people, I know there's a lot of naysayers out there that were saying that, grading might be a fad. It's gonna maybe go away. From what I saw at the National, like every dealer was selling graded cards. Whereas a couple years ago, you saw it. I feel like a couple years ago, and I had a pretty long conversation about this with a couple people from the community, but I would say it was like 50-50 almost raw to slab in 2019 and 2018 at the National. Now it was like, I would say it was about like 90-10 slab to raw. Like you really had to look hard to find dealers selling only raw cards.
The only
raw cards.
The only thing I might say is off with that is because there was a ton of vintage, a lot more vintage graded this year than I've ever seen in the past.
Yes.
But a lot of those vintage guys still had their books out there where you pick your card, fill your.
Yeah.
So that's where you got the raw stuff is that kind of throws off those numbers a little bit. Those guys, when you first walk in, they're going to stay raw until the time they leave this world. So,
yeah, I should have prefaced it by saying the 90-10 split that I'm talking about is dealers selling anything slabbed to dealers selling only raw. Raw.
Oh, okay.
Only have raw cards.
I'm with you there. Okay.
Yeah. Like
okay.
Only raw.
Yeah.
And looking at tables, trying to find dealers who sold only raw cards, there was maybe like a handful of them. Like everyone had slabbed cards almost.
Yeah, and going back to the HGA, they just need somebody to help with spell check. That's all they need.
I think the problem with them is they have the people doing the submissions, doing the spell, putting the spelling in. So I would say HGA's problem is they need to hire somebody to make sure that the customers are putting in the correct stuff on the label.
Right. I want somebody to put something.
I understand why they're doing it that way. It's less work for them, but guys, if you want to be taken seriously, things have to be spelled correctly.
Yeah.
So
and no math, where the 4 subgrades should.
That one too. I'm like, how does this happen? But again, they're a new company just starting out. They're not like CSG. CSG, they're established. Like I said, they come from the comic book world. So HGA is just starting out.
And they got 2 guys that came from Beckett that are running that for them. So
yeah, both of them adopted the Beckett grading scale, which I'm not too crazy over that. I like the PSA scale,
right?
Which is the 1 through the 10, which SGC has the similar scale, but they just added the 9.5 since PSA doesn't have a 9.5, which I like those 2 scales. That's the scales I like. I don't the Beckett graded scale. I mean, a lot of people love it, but I prefer the other one.
Yeah, it's hard to look at a 9.5 and go, oh, well, that'd be a PSA 10. It's just kind of hard to.
Yeah. Or it's not a true gem. It's not a true gem because 9.5, 9.5, 9.5, and 9. Like,
yeah, that's one of the reasons why I don't get subgrade, because I hate that.
Yeah.
I'm like,
just give me a number.
Right. Well, Ed, I appreciate you doing this. I'm going to let you go. We've been doing this for over an hour, and I'm sure we'll get together in the future at shows and on the interwebs. Tell everybody where they can find you on the socials.
I only just have the YouTube, so my channel Weskergriff. I pretty much post videos weekly uh, for since 2011. So you'll see weekly videos,
But
or
don't call him OG.
or semi-weekly videos. And then I do have an Instagram, but I very sporadically post on that thing. Like I'll get into mindset for 2 weeks where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna post stuff. I'll post stuff for 2 weeks, and then a month will go by, and I'll be like, I haven't logged on there once.
Right.
And then you see like messages from people, and you're like, oh man, they probably think I'm a jerk because I haven't responded, but I just don't log on to
Right.
Instagram, and I should be more proactive in posting on Instagram because there's a huge community on there of people that don't even do YouTube or they only do Instagram.
Right.
But I mean, we saw that with our own eyes at the National. All the people that Instagram brings out, so it's a whole different world out there. So I probably should be a little more proactive there. But
Yeah.
I just do those two. I don't do any of the other social medias.
All right. Well, again, Ed, thank you very much. Thank you for what you did for me at the show. I told Mike the same thing, y'all. You know, this show was special for me, being more in touch with the community and, you know, being out there a little bit more and hanging out with you guys. And Saturday was a blast and all that. And thank you for coming on and sharing some of your stories with us. You're a very good storyteller, and it's great.
No problem. I appreciate you having me on, Scott. Anytime you want to do it, that's fine with me.
All right, Ed. Until next time, please like, share, subscribe. I finally got to the 400 mark, so let's
Nice.
keep it going. Till next time, see ya.